I will have to call you out though, David. I didn't hear you explain ESRAG, which for anyone that doesn't know, ESRAG is the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. You might hear of RAGs or Rotary Action Groups in other areas as well. There's, I couldn't tell you how many, hundreds of Rotary Action Groups on all different topics, and you can join these if there's something that you're passionate about. Maybe your club or district doesn't focus on it as much, but you know it's a passion for you nonetheless. You can get together with them. They're Rotarians, Rotaractors from all across the world on a specific topic. Peter Freuh is a past district governor and member of the Rotary Club of Baldwin, who I understand may have got their market idea from the Rotary Club of Belconnen. Could be a bit of history there. Peter is the co-chair of the Regionalisation project for Zone 8, which is looking at the future structure of Rotary in our zone. I know Peter's been working on this for a long time, so I'm looking forward to hearing what might be in store for the future. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction, and also thanks to Acting District Governor Michael Moore for inviting me to be able to speak to. I treat this as a real privilege, and I do that because, as Andrew mentioned, I have been involved in this for quite some time now, over 4 years, and it was at the request of past RI Director Noel Travascus, who's in the room. Hopefully, Noel, give us a wave. He's gone. He's hiding. Ask Noel. If anything I don't cover, ask Noel. But Noel was at that time chairing the worldwide committee that looked at redistricting, or a districting committee that was observing the changes that have been mentioned today, the growth of new districts in territories where Rotary is still the way to go and has got huge upside, but also unfortunately in our own areas where our membership has been declining, as has been indicated, and what to do about it. And we don't really want things to be negative. When we combine two districts, we want it to be a positive. That was Noel's message. What could we do different? And I think your district, with the work that the team's put together, Steve Hill, very instrumental from the outset, and Mike when he took it over, have done a fantastic job of, really thinking about things differently. And if I point out one aspect, it would be area governors. That's a new term that was introduced, and it really was a devolution of responsibilities. This was accelerated in 2018-19 when the District Governors of Australia and New Zealand petitioned a unanimous petition to the RI Board asking could they propose a new regional structure. And along with my counterpart Ingrid Waugh from New Zealand, we were appointed as co-chairs and have been working for 3 years with a team of up to about 70 people behind the scenes. In February this year, the Rotary International Board unanimously approved our proposal in principle, and we are now about to provide briefings to all the clubs in Zone 8. So I'll come back to that. So if I could have the first slide then, thanks Dave. Go back one. I want to go back to a blank one here, which is what it was. You probably had it on the blank one. And really, what I'm presenting to you now is a presentation that's in draft that we will be providing to brief all clubs in Australia and New Zealand and the other 14 countries that we have Rotary clubs in. And it's really going to be a narrated video just to get consistency of message. So you're getting a bit of a preview, so it's a bit of warts and all. But the first slide is really a blank slide, and I'm going to ask you to do, I know it's late in the day, you might go to sleep, but would be just to spend a few seconds now, close your eyes if you wish or not, but have a think about what you've heard today and have an imagination of what would the future Rotary look like? If you were starting from scratch now and thinking of some of the messages you've got today, what would it look like? How would it be structured? What would have changed from what we know now? And where would you be in that new Rotary? And that's really what we've been trying to do, is to come up with creating a new Rotary. Sorry about the graphics, didn't translate too well. But creating a new version of Rotary. And we've been, as I said, working across the region here, from the bottom up, if really. So we've had 5 articles in Rotary Down under Regenerating Rotary, very much the topic for this conference, and I think it's very relevant that you've picked that topic. But we've also sought input from people. We sent a survey question out to 25,000 Rotarians across our zone, and we received over 600 replies with a lot of information. And when we asked people to help us, we had 140 people who said they wanted to help us. So we've been using a bottom-up approach, if you like, to identify the key things we should improve. Oops. Now, many of you will be familiar, obviously, with Paul Harris, our founder. This is a photo of him as an older man. He was 37 when he started Rotary. And like Kathy was saying today, we have to create space for people mid-career to create their Rotary, have their engagement, their version of it. And for people Andrew's age who have in Rotaract, a pathway into Rotary, how good would it be? Now, sometimes we just evolve. We're all evolving all the time. We know that. We talked about it. Kathy mentioned, what about COVID? It completely revolutionised the way we conduct some of our businessy type meetings. We still love to get together face to face. But we are at a stage where we now have to do some revolutionary things. But it'll take 2 or 3, 4 years in Rotary to do it. So it's a sort of Rotary warp speed. So what is this future that we're going to have? What's it look like? We've heard a lot about this today, and I think this is more than a slogan. I think it's something about, as people said, we need to look like the communities we're in. We need to look like the communities that we're not servicing. And we need to be representative in every measure. As Fiona mentioned before, I think she put things extremely well. So I think the faces we've used for these are all Rotarians and Rotaractors from our region. And here's Nick, a Rotaractor. His comment is that change is required. And good on you, Andrew, because you're one of 5% of Rotaractors who actually joined Rotary. So Rotaract is a fantastic organisation in its own right. It's growing dramatically, 200,000 members around the world and growing rapidly. But the pathways into Rotary, or the pathways into some other form of engagement, have yet to be worked through. And I think it takes the pioneers to show us how to do that. This figure was put up before of the membership, which has gone down 25% in the last 10 years. And that's sort of 1 member per club. You don't sort of notice it, and then another the next year in net terms, until you're fading away. If anyone told you that, you know, any business was declined 24% in a 10-year period, you'd be worried. But what about the top line figure? The population in Australia and New Zealand in total has grown by 20% in the same 10 years. Then we're talking about a 45% decline. That's a massive lack of relevancy, which I'll come back to later. Perception is reality. I'm sure there's not too many clubs that look just like this, but there might be certain elements of that you could identify with. And really, we have to respect the past. Rotary grew to 200,000 members across the world in about 20 years. It was a social network of its era, when people could only communicate by mail and by very expensive phone calls. So it was a dramatically successful model, and it still remains that in some parts of the world. But unfortunately, in our part of the world, that model doesn't work. Also, this is perception is reality as well. If you think about it, are we a fundraising organisation? At least we're Rotarians in the community there. We're talking to people, we're hopefully giving them a good vibe about Rotary. But if they only see where we're getting our money from and helping there, where's the money go to? Where are the projects? Where's the publicity? You know these things. It's about telling those stories and showing the recipients of the programs that we run are the things that people want to know about. They don't want to see photos of, Rotary Club meetings. They want to understand what projects Rotary does. It's the sort of thing Dave was talking about. How good is it to have environmental sustainability? Protecting the environment is the seventh area of focus. That is the number one issue of anyone under 40 if they look for global issues. And now all of a sudden we've got something to talk about. And many of our clubs have been doing those projects, but what a great membership opportunity, as David put it. So these are the challenges. I'm not going to dwell on them. You can read them. We've heard all these things before. But when we started this work, we did sort of a deep dive into each of those, and we wanted to see what we could do to make changes that would work in this area. I don't want to dwell on the negatives. Oops, sorry, I'm pointing in the wrong direction here. Here's a well-established Rotarian, age undisclosed, but been a long-term Rotarian. He says, we need your help. So, as I've covered this off a little bit, I won't go through it again, but we do have a team that's analysed this. We've done a lot of work. We've got 5 working groups that have been identifying each of the areas of potential collaboration across Australia and New Zealand that we could work so much better together. And it's not just Rotarians involved. We've also got the Rotaract leaders from Australia and New Zealand and skilled Rotaractors working in our working groups as well. Because what we want is the big picture of Rotary to be able to step forward. It's also not a top-down design. We're started bottom-up. And interestingly, Rotary International had started in a Shaping Rotary's Future Committee, a top-down sort of look at how administratively hidebound Rotary's become over the years when we're adding in overlay over overlay of responsibilities for districts, responsibilities for functions to try and get them better supported, like membership or public image or foundation. We've got a very complex structure is what it boils down to currently. So I just briefly want to cover the areas that we can evolve. These are the 5 areas that we've been focused on, and I've got a slide for each one. So that's the better connection is focused around communication, internal communication primarily, but also a consistent message to what we are communicating externally. The membership experience, as Kathy referenced earlier in the day, every company in the world is looking at what's the customer experience. And every organisation, associations, golf clubs, everybody is looking at what is the member experience if you're a membership-based organisation. And also, how fit are our clubs for purpose? Because it's no good having a club in an area if it's not attractive for people to go into it. The third area is the better governance structure, which is focused in, instead of having 23 districts for our 31,000 Rotarians and then decreasing those, maybe we could have more grassroots focal points for Rotary in an area, like an area governor, and then use more of a national structure or even an international structure to provide the support that clubs need in areas such as public image or how to grow their membership, and also how to sustainably develop new clubs. That's the better, the governance one. One Rotary voice. This one kills me. Basically, Ian Risley tells a very good story that he recalls the day when they got a phone call from, well, what should I say? Well, I might as well say it was General Motors Holden, who at the time who wanted to do something nationally with either lines of Rotary. And so he rustled up the relevant other DGs of the day, about 26 of them or whatever, see if they could do something together. They couldn't agree on anything, so they didn't have anyone to talk to. There was no Rotary Australia. So all of a sudden he wasn't able to respond. Within a week, Lions had signed a contract with GM to do something that they wanted to do because they had a national structure. So having one voice and one organisation to deal with is really powerful. how many of the projects we've seen here could be grown into much bigger projects if we had that collaboration. And more leadership opportunities, that's the key point. So I'll just flick through the other slides because I'm really covering these off. How can we change? And then there's a slide with some detail on each one. So rather than read them through, you can have a look at what I was talking about with better connection. And better member and club experiences. And we've talked again today about collaboration between clubs. Every time you visit a club, it's like a bubble. There's a bubble, a group of people that do something fantastic. And there's, right next door, there's another bubble doing something very good, and another one over here, and another one over there. Let alone if it's other parts of the Rotary world, whether that's in the same country or even internationally. So how do we connect all these bubbles together and allow people to find their user experience that they want out of Rotary? That's really the challenge of the modern. And if you think about it, all modern knowledge worker organisations are grappling with this, but we're grappling with it from a very low base. So we can rapidly ramp up what we do in this area. The governance structure, it's just it's not nice to talk about costs when you're meeting with friends, but the bottom line is most of our district fees are about the same as the RI fees, $70 US, so say $100 Australian. We've got 31,000 members. That's $3 million Australian every year we're paying in district dues. No district that I know of employs anyone. It's all cost recovery for the 2,000 plus volunteers at district that are doing a very important role, covering their costs. Surely we could spend that $3 million a year better and reduce it to 2 million or 1.5 million, or reinvest it in better tools that support you as a club. So I'm not offering this as a cost, it's not a cost saving exercise, but there's so much opportunity to do more with what we've got. And obviously that's reflected in the duplication. Think about the volunteer effort that's replicated everywhere as well. The one Rotary voice I mentioned before, partnering is very important for that. Telling our stories. The most powerful story is not the one that's on TV. The most powerful story is when you tell your story about what your club is doing, because that's the obvious question. And the more Rotary moments you've got, the more you can match it to perhaps the starting point of what might interest the person you're talking to, depending on their interest. More leadership opportunities. Some people have said to me, well, look, if you get rid of the districts or reduce the number of duplicated, roles, then all of a sudden you're not providing leadership opportunities. But what about if we provided opportunities for people in things that they were good at, knowledgeable about, and could have impact, right across Australia or right across the world, potentially, by having the best of the best information available and then being part of it. To me, that's far more powerful. And I'd say the same thing with the area governors as a stepping stone, but if we have the evolution of that towards people who are there for 4 years supporting the clubs, elected by the clubs to be their rep, they become somebody that the mayor of every, shire or city in that area knows well. That is Rotary in their area. And these community-based people will become far more powerful than having somebody who's sort of changing role every year. So the whole focus of this is about being better for members and clubs in general terms. In terms of your role in this, it's pretty simple. I mean, this is a two-way process. We're developing the plans along this pathway. Because the board has now given us the approval to go ahead, we have 2 stepping stones that we've got to get through. We have a council on legislation coming up. Now, for those who you're new to Rotary or whatever, that's like our parliament. So over 500 district reps will be meeting in April. Steve Hill is your rep, and he's going over to America for the face-to-face, but it's because of COVID, it's a hybrid. So there's a mechanism for delegates to represent their district and vote on matters without having to physically go there. So that is very important for one particular reason, and that is one of the enactments that your district started. So it's an enactment number 71 to be considered, which is now worded that Zone 8 and Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland be allowed to diverge from the governance model that applies for the rest of the Rotary world and allow us to evolve this model over the next few years to be more responsive and a more positive environment. And if we get the nod from that, obviously that's fantastic. Even if we don't, we will still be able to press on, but it will be dependent on the districts agreeing to go forward. The aim then, that's in April. In August, we will have a vote of clubs. And this video, or the slides of the video that I'm showing now, well, it's really focused around showing your support by voting yes. Because essentially, there will come a time in August where your club members and your president will be taking a vote as to whether to support this change that's going forward. And we need a 2/3 majority of all the clubs in a district and we need all the districts to be on board. So that's quite a big hurdle. So that's really where I'd like to leave it, and just with the thoughts that if you want to take just one thing out of this, we're talking about really avoiding duplication of effort and reducing costs, providing best practice support for clubs and members, and providing one voice for Rotary in Australia and New Zealand. And a couple of fun facts before I finish. Volunteers, if you look at the sign over there, it talks about humanitarian volunteers. Volunteers are everywhere. 30% of people in Australia over the age of 18 volunteer 4 hours or more a week. In my own state, I'm from Victoria, there's 2.2 million volunteers, an army of volunteers bigger than the Chinese army. And interestingly, there's 250,000 people who are in the 18 to 25-year-old bracket. Now, they're not all volunteering and necessarily candidates for Rotary, but for every Rotarian there are 300 volunteers. So all this bit about, we can't find anyone suitable for our club, you're not looking at. The key part is we have to go to the community and not expect them to come to us. We have to adapt to our community rather than asking for an ever-diminishing number of people who want to adapt to our model. So with that, we haven't got time for questions now, but I'll be around after here. I'm here tonight for the dinner and all day to lunchtime when it finishes tomorrow. So please call me, and I'll be very happy to take any questions you've got. We have a new website with starting next week, and the existing website, the Zone website, I can give to you as well. That's down the bottom. But we have a much jazzier new website starting next week. Thank you very much for your time.